So in the previous video, we finally understood how our data is structured now that it's in an iModel. The next step is to actually get some instance data and look at our smart devices within our house. So to do that, what we use is this tool called the iModel console. Now this is used for writing queries against your iModel before you start using them within your application. Think of it as a testing ground to see what's in your iModel. So in this case, what we're trying to look for are the smart devices. So where would we begin that search? So first we need the actual schema and class name. So in this case, we saw this earlier. We have DGM custom items types, house schema, smart device. And this format is important. What we do is we copy this, and then the language we use to query data within an iModel is EC-SQL, which is based on SQL. It's very similar. So we do a select star from, and then this is where you would have a table name in SQL. In this case, the way you define a table name in EC-SQL is by doing the schema dot class name. And that should give us all our smart devices actually. So that's our list of devices. Now you can see there's a bunch of properties here, and these are all the properties that we see over here within the class definition. The only stuff that we really care about is the smart device ID and the smart device type and the EC instance ID. So how do we get just those properties? So what we can do is, I talked about how the properties are kind of like the columns within SQL. So you can see here, the properties are literally our columns here within our table. So all we do is just type in what we need. So EC instance ID, then we have our smart device ID, and then we have our smart device type. And that gives us everything we need. So over here you can see the instance IDs, the smart device IDs that we saw within our DGN, and the smart device type. Now something to note here is, what is this EC instance ID I talk about? Now, this is the unique identifier within your iModel for any given element. Think of it as a primary key, and every element within BIS is going to have an EC instance ID. And in this case, it's going to help us point towards the 3D element within our view to point at a certain smart device. So keep that in mind for later, but that's basically what an EC instance ID is. Now the last thing I want to show you here is we talked about this hierarchical structure within BIS. So we have our smart device, and we just queried this schema and class. But also, we know that this inherits from our spatial element, geometric element 3D, geometric element, and element. So what does that really mean in terms of the instance data? So to give an example, let's say we are trying to query a certain element that we saw in the list with BIS-core.geometric element 3D. So we can literally pick up this element ID, and we can do select star from BIS, which is the shorthand for BIS core, which dot geometric element 3D, where EC instance ID is equal to that number, which means that not only is this a smart device, but it also is a geometric element 3D. What that means is that, so the same instance data can be viewed from different perspectives based on different schemas. So it's an element within BIS core, but also is an element within the smart device house schema. And the idea is that the properties that you see when you do a query are going to be the properties that you request for the class. So in this case, the geometric element 3D is the class that we're requesting the properties for. So we only get those properties. We won't get our smart device ID here. We just get the 3D element properties. But when we do a deeper query of actually using the detail class name, then we'll get our smart device IDs. So keep that in mind when you construct your own queries, that you want to query the class that has the property you're looking for. All right, so I think we got all our smart devices. At this point, let's do a quick recap of the tools we used, the iModel console and the Schema Explorer, in the next video.